Welcome to Zoe Stories. Brother's bet turned me into his girly doll. The first thing I noticed was the knock. Not the usual polite tap, but a sharp, confident rap that sent a shiver down my spine. Ryan didn't knock unless he wanted something, and when it came to him, something usually meant trouble. I was halfway through reorganizing my small apartment, pretending the piles of laundry and unopened boxes didn't exist, when he appeared in the doorway, leaning casually, grin spreading across his face like he owned the world. "Alex," he said, voice low and teasing. "How about we play a little game?" I tried to laugh it off. "Ryan, seriously. I'm busy." But the glint in his eye told me the game had already started. He stepped inside anyway, ignoring my protests, and dropped something heavy onto the couch. A small box, neatly wrapped. My pulse quickened. Ryan never delivered gifts, only challenges. "Open it," he said, leaning back and crossing his arms. With a sigh, I tore the wrapping, revealing a set of silk stockings, a delicate skirt, a wig, and a box of makeup. My stomach dropped. "You've got 10 hours, he said, voice dangerously casual, to transform completely. Every hair, every nail, every inch. And you'll wear it. No excuses. No hiding. If you fail," his grin widened, wicked and certain. "Well, you'll find out." I froze. A mix of panic and something else surged through me. Excitement. Fear. Desire. All at once. Ryan's bets weren't just games. They were tests. And I had a secret that, until now, I had controlled. My private world of cross-dressing, the thrill of becoming someone entirely feminine, fragile, and untouchable, was about to be exposed to the one person who could turn it into chaos. I tried to protest, but my voice faltered. Ryan's eyes gleamed with the satisfaction of someone who knew the exact buttons to push. "You think you can resist me?" he teased. I hesitated, staring at the clothes, the wig, the makeup, all laid out like instruments of some cruel symphony. And then, in a moment I still can't explain, curiosity won. Because part of me, the hidden, secretive part, wanted this. The idea of fully surrendering to the transformation, of seeing myself as someone entirely different, terrified and thrilled me. But Ryan's challenge added something else, a pressure, a suspense, a public exposure of my private world that made my heart pound. And then there was Alexa. My girlfriend. Sweet, perceptive Alexa, who had no idea about the side of me that existed in secret. What would she think? Would she laugh? Would she hate me? Or would she be intrigued? I glanced down at the skirt, the stockings, the tiny shoes. The fabric looked impossibly delicate, almost mocking me. And yet, the thought of sliding into it, of feeling the silky material against my skin, made a shiver run through me. Ryan's smirk broke my thoughts. "You've got until tonight. And Alex. I'll be watching." With that, he left as abruptly as he had appeared, leaving me alone with the box, my heartbeat racing, and a world of possibilities stretching out in front of me. For hours, I paced my apartment, torn between hesitation and temptation. Every instinct screamed to run, to throw the clothes away, to call it impossible. And yet, the thrill of the challenge, the hidden desire to explore myself, gnawed at me relentlessly. By late afternoon, I found myself staring into the mirror. The wig still in its packaging, the skirt folded neatly on the bed. My reflection looked the same as always, familiar, safe, but I knew that would change. Soon, I would be someone else entirely. Someone delicate, exposed, and undeniably feminine. I took a deep breath and reached for the wig. The first step. The transformation had begun. And with it, a tension I had never felt before, the suspense of being caught, the danger of exposing my secret, and the intoxicating thrill of surrendering to something I had hidden for so long. That evening, as I slid into the stockings, buttoned the skirt, and traced eyeliner over my eyes, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just a bet. This was a turning point. By the time Ryan returned, the person I had been all my life might no longer exist. And deep down, a small, excited part of me hoped that was exactly what would happen. The first time I felt the weight of the bet, I didn't even realize it would consume me. I was in my room, the late afternoon sunlight spilling through the blinds, dust motes floating lazily in the golden light. But the light didn't feel warm, it felt accusatory, spotlighting the secret I had kept buried for so long. Ryan's challenge wasn't just a joke. He had leaned in, eyes glinting with that mix of mischief and cruelty he always carried, and whispered, "I bet you can't spend the night like her, from head to toe." From head to toe. The words spun around in my mind, both terrifying and thrilling. I had always loved cross-dressing, but never anyone had known. Never Ryan. Never Alexa. And now, I was standing on the edge of exposure. My fingers trembled as I reached for the wig he had left on the chair. Soft, glossy strands, almost alive in their sheen. Placing it over my head, adjusting it to fit, I could barely recognize myself in the mirror. My jaw softened, my features shifted, and for a moment, I wasn't Alex at all. Then came the makeup. Foundation, eyeliner, mascara, blush, tools of transformation that felt like magic in my hands. Each brushstroke sent a shiver down my spine. I traced the contours of my face, blending colors, shaping shadows. My reflection began to feel like a stranger, someone delicate, fragile, and impossibly alluring. I took a step back. My heartbeat was loud in my ears, every instinct screaming caution. Yet beneath that fear, an odd thrill bubbled. I had never let myself go this far alone. Ryan had handed me the rules, but I was the one filling in the details, exploring a side of me that had always existed only in secrecy. Clothes were next. The skirt was light and soft, swaying as I slipped into it. The stockings hugged my legs like a second skin, smooth and teasing. I paused, fingertips tracing the fabric, feeling an unexpected surge of excitement. The transformation was no longer just physical, it was emotional, intoxicating, terrifying. And then the heels. I had never worn them seriously. They felt alien under my feet, unsteady with each step. My posture shifted instinctively, hips swaying, shoulders lifting. I practiced walking, correcting myself with every wobble. I laughed nervously at my own reflection, but even that laugh felt different, higher, softer, melodic in a way I had never heard from myself before. Time passed unnoticed. Each second was a mixture of thrill and anxiety, every glance at the mirror a reminder of how exposed I was. The duality of my identity, Alex and this delicate version of me, made my chest tighten. I was exhilarated, yes, but also petrified. Ryan had said nothing about being watched, yet I felt eyes on me. Shadows seemed longer, corners darker. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant car horn made my heart leap. The risk of discovery was intoxicating. It made every movement deliberate, every glance in the mirror more intense. I tried to focus, to lose myself in the act of transformation. Each detail mattered: hair, makeup, skirt, stockings, heels. The persona I was creating demanded precision, patience, and courage. And yet, in those moments of solitude, I realized that what terrified me most wasn't being caught, it was how much I was enjoying it. The reflection stared back at me, eyes wide, lips soft, posture elegant. This was me, and yet not me. A version I had always wanted to explore, a secret I had never dared to reveal. I practiced shifting my voice, softening the tone, letting words come out lighter, almost musical. The transformation was nearly complete, and with it came a strange mix of vulnerability and empowerment. I paused, taking a deep breath. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, the world outside distant and irrelevant. I was suspended in a space between fear and exhilaration, between Alex and the girly persona Ryan had dared me to become. And then, quietly, almost whispering to myself, I realized, I was ready. The bet had done more than challenge me. It had stripped away my hesitation, forced me to confront the thrill and shame, the excitement and fear, all at once. Ryan's voice echoed in my mind. No hiding. Wear it all. I was wearing it all. And with that, a shiver of anticipation ran through me. Would I survive the night without being caught? Could I maintain this delicate facade when every instinct screamed to run back to safety? I didn't know. All I knew was that the transformation was only beginning, and the suspense was far from over. The evening breeze drifted through the open balcony door, carrying the distant hum of traffic and faint laughter from the street below. I had moved to the small rooftop terrace, a place I rarely used, but tonight it felt like the only escape from the tension building inside me. The bet Ryan had forced upon me wasn't just a game, it was a test of control, daring me to fully inhabit this girly persona while the world outside went on oblivious. I stood near the railing, heels clicking softly against the smooth tiles, skirt swaying with every tentative step. The wind teased the strands of the wig Ryan had left me, brushing them against my cheeks. I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflective glass door and froze. The person staring back was almost unrecognizable. Soft makeup highlighted my features, the stockings clung to my legs perfectly, and the high heels gave me an unfamiliar elegance. But it wasn't just the physical transformation that gripped me, it was the way I felt in it. Vulnerable, yes, but also exhilarated. I traced my fingers along the fabric of the skirt, feeling its silky texture and the way it hugged me, and a shiver ran down my spine. My reflection seemed to whisper a question: who are you really? Every instinct screamed caution. Someone could walk up the terrace stairs, or a neighbor could glance over. The city below was alive, indifferent, but that only made my exposure feel more potent. What would they think if they saw me like this? The thought was terrifying, yet intoxicating. My heartbeat accelerated as if the risk itself was feeding the thrill. I perched on the edge of a stone bench, trying to steady my shaking hands. The heels made balancing an exercise in concentration, each movement deliberate. I shifted my weight, testing the sway of my hips, the sway of the skirt, the way my posture changed entirely. In this moment, I was no longer just Alex, the guy everyone expected, but someone entirely different, delicate, feminine, and undeniably visible. My mind drifted to Alexa. Sweet, perceptive Alexa, who had no idea I was exploring this hidden side of myself. What would she think if she saw me like this? Would she laugh? Judge me? Or be intrigued? The uncertainty gnawed at me, each scenario more vivid than the last. The fear of judgment mingled with a strange, guilty excitement. I moved to the edge of the terrace, leaning slightly over the railing, feeling the cool night air brush against my legs. The stockings and skirt fluttered lightly, and for a moment, I imagined a stranger watching from below. My chest tightened at the thought of fear, anticipation, and something dangerously close to desire blending into a single, overwhelming sensation. Then came the makeup. I caught a small reflection in the balcony glass and noticed a smudge near my eye. Pulling out the compact mirror, I carefully corrected it, each movement precise and deliberate. It was a meticulous dance, attention to detail, posture, expression, all blending into this fragile, feminine persona. And yet, behind the careful exterior, my pulse raced, my breath quickened, and a thrill coursed through me that I couldn't ignore. I shifted position, brushing the wig slightly to one side, experimenting with how it framed my face. Each adjustment made me feel more like a different person. The thrill of stepping fully into this identity, even under Ryan's command, was intoxicating. I laughed softly, a sound that felt light and melodic, and then froze. The echo of that laugh across the terrace made the world feel suddenly larger, and my vulnerability more acute. And then I thought about Ryan. He was somewhere nearby, probably imagining the exact moment I would falter. The thought made my stomach twist. Part of me wanted to run, to strip it all off and return to the safety of my normal self. But another part, the part one had never admitted even to myself, wanted to linger, to feel every second of this exposure, every pulse of fear, every wave of excitement. The night grew darker, the city lights flickering on one by one. Shadows stretched across the terrace, and I felt like I was suspended in a delicate balance between two worlds. Below me, life continued, unaware. Above me, I was someone else entirely, both thrillingly exposed and completely entranced by my own reflection. I took a deep breath, adjusting the heels once more, and practiced walking back toward the door. Each step was slow, deliberate, rehearsed. The swish of the skirt, the tap of the heels, the sway of my posture, it all felt surreal, like I was performing for someone unseen. My reflection in the glass seemed to smile, almost mocking, almost approving. And then a sound. A soft creak from the stairs leading up to the terrace. My heart skipped a beat. Had Ryan returned early? Or was it a neighbor? The fear shot through me, electrifying every nerve. I froze, balancing carefully on the heels, imagining the consequences of being caught like this. The thrill of danger, combined with the delicate vulnerability of the transformation, made me shiver. I realized then that this wasn't just about a bet. It was about testing the boundaries of who I could be, about surrendering control in a way I had never dared before. Every step, every glance in the mirror, every flicker of light on the city streets below was a reminder that tonight, I wasn't just Alex. I was someone entirely new, fragile yet intoxicatingly powerful in my own secret world. And the suspense wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The room was bathed in the soft glow of the evening city lights spilling through the large bay windows. I had moved to the loft's open lounge area, a space I rarely used for anything more than work or reading, but tonight it became my stage, my arena. Every surface reflected fragments of my new self, the high heels clicking softly, the delicate skirt swishing with each step, the wig perfectly framing my altered features. I paced slowly, almost ritualistically, feeling the weight of each movement. The bet wasn't just a challenge, it was an exposure of everything I had hidden for years. The heels forced me to adjust my balance, the skirt swayed with my every motion, and the wig brushed softly against my shoulders. I caught myself in the mirrored cabinet and froze. The reflection staring back wasn't just Alex. It was someone fragile, delicate, almost ethereal. The thrill was addictive. Each adjustment to my posture, each careful step, made me feel simultaneously exposed and empowered. I ran my fingers along the stockings, feeling the silky texture against my skin, and shivered. The vulnerability of this transformation was intoxicating. I was no longer just performing a dare, I was living a secret, delicate fantasy that had been locked away for years. And yet, fear lingered. A part of me imagined Alexa walking through the door at any moment. The thought of her seeing me like this made my pulse race. What would she say? Would she laugh? Would she be horrified? My mind raced with possibilities, each one more vivid than the last. The uncertainty only heightened the thrill, the suspense gnawing at me with every heartbeat. I moved toward the lounge's glass railing, looking out at the glowing skyline. The wind carried the faint sounds of life below, cars, distant voices, laughter, but up here, suspended between the city and my secret world, I felt completely alone. And yet, the isolation intensified the sensation of being watched. Every shadow seemed to stretch toward me, every flicker of light a potential observer. The makeup I had meticulously applied earlier caught the reflection of the city lights, and I reached up instinctively, smoothing a strand of wig that had fallen across my cheek. Each movement was deliberate, careful, yet strangely liberating. I was practicing, perfecting the persona Ryan had challenged me to embody, and the act of inhabiting this delicate, feminine version of myself made my heart pound with anticipation. Then came the heels again. I took slow, deliberate steps across the polished floor, listening to the soft click with every movement. It was a sound that somehow amplified my vulnerability. The higher I lifted my chin, the more I felt the sway of my skirt and the subtle curve of my posture. The persona was taking shape fully, every detail aligning to create someone both mesmerizing and fragile. The thrill mingled with a creeping fear. Each creak of the floorboards or shift of shadows made me startle, imagining Ryan watching from some hidden corner, ready to mock or test me further. The risk of discovery, the knowledge that I was completely visible in my own private space, made every second feel suspended in tension. I caught sight of my reflection again. The high cheekbones highlighted by blush, the soft pink lips, the delicate sway of my skirt, it was addictive. I practiced tilting my head, shifting my shoulders, letting my eyes soften. Each small movement reinforced the illusion, yet the fear never fully dissipated. Every glance over my shoulder reminded me that this delicate persona was temporary, fragile, and entirely exposed. I sat down on the low lounge chair, the heels making the act of sitting a deliberate exercise in balance. My legs felt unusually long, my posture altered, and the sensation of the skirt brushing my thighs made me shiver. The thrill of this transformation was intoxicating, but it carried a dangerous edge. I was walking a line between excitement and fear, pleasure and panic, and every step of the night would push me further along that razor-thin boundary. The clock ticked audibly in the background, each second marking progress and heightening suspense. Ryan's bet wasn't just about cross-dressing, it was about testing how far I could surrender control, how vulnerable I could allow myself to be. And with each passing minute, I realized that surrendering to this persona was far more addictive than I had anticipated. I practiced speaking softly, altering the tone of my voice, letting the words come out higher and lighter. Hearing myself speak like this was surreal, almost intoxicating. The reflection stared back, fully formed now, a delicate, feminine version of me, crafted with careful attention to detail, and yet undeniably Alex beneath the surface. And then, a sound. The faint shuffle of footsteps in the hallway below. My breath caught. Someone was out there, maybe Ryan, maybe a neighbor, maybe nothing at all. But my body froze, heels gripping the floor, skirt clinging to my legs, wig brushing my shoulders. The suspense made every nerve tingle, and I realized that the thrill of transformation wasn't just in the mirror, it was in the danger of being caught, the tension of exposure. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. The bet, the persona, the risk, they were no longer just a challenge. They had become an experience that consumed me, a high-wire act between secrecy and revelation, fear and ecstasy. I had stepped fully into this girly persona, and there was no turning back. The night stretched on, the city lights flickering below, the shadows around me deepening. Each moment was a test, each movement a rehearsal, each breath a reminder of the delicate balance I now inhabited. And somewhere in the distance, I knew Ryan was smiling, waiting to see how far I could go before the thrill, or the fear, consumed me completely. The night had fully settled, draping everything outside in shadows. I found myself in the small, dimly lit sunroom at the back of the loft, a space I rarely used, lined with potted plants and shelves of books. The glass walls reflected my image in multiple fragments, one reflection multiplied endlessly across the panes, each version delicate, feminine, exposed. I felt like a living kaleidoscope, each angle showing a different version of me, and the effect was almost dizzying. I stepped carefully over the wooden floor, the high heels making each movement a calculated exercise. Every step reminded me of Ryan's bet and the stakes that came with it. He had promised no shortcuts, no hiding. 10 hours, all or nothing. And now, alone in this room surrounded by reflections, I realized that all meant revealing a side of me that I had never shared with anyone, not Alexa, not my closest friends, not even myself in such intensity. My fingers hovered over the skirt, smoothing the fabric over my hips. The stockings clung perfectly, soft and teasing, and the wig's strands brushed gently across my collarbone. Every detail mattered. I had to embody this persona fully, or the bet would be lost, and Ryan would surely make sure I felt the consequences. I leaned slightly toward one of the mirrored panes, practicing expressions. Eyes wide, lips soft, voice delicate. Each movement was a careful performance, but the challenge wasn't just physical. It was emotional. The reflection staring back was both me and not me. It was fragile, feminine, alluring, and utterly vulnerable. And beneath it all, Alex still lingered, unsure, anxious, and electrified by the danger. A sudden gust of wind through the open sunroom door made the plants sway, the shadows dance across the floor, and the loose strands of the wig brush against my cheeks. My heart jumped. For a moment, I imagined someone standing outside, peering in, laughing at my exposed state. The thrill of potential discovery made my pulse race. Fear and excitement tangled together, impossible to separate. I sank onto the low wooden bench by the window, heels awkward under my legs. The act of sitting gracefully was another challenge, forcing me to adjust my posture, shift my weight, and maintain the elegance of the persona. Every motion was a rehearsal, every glance in the reflection a reminder that tonight, nothing about me was ordinary. My mind drifted to Alexa, her soft voice, her laughter, her eyes. She had no idea about this hidden side of me. Would she ever understand? Would she laugh, judge, or, God forbid, reject me? The uncertainty gnawed at me, but I could feel the thrill countering the fear. The balance between shame and excitement was razor thin, and every heartbeat made it harder to distinguish one from the other. Then I noticed the smallest flaw, a smudge of mascara near my eye. Panic bubbled up. Someone could see that, could notice, could expose me. I quickly retrieved a compact mirror, adjusting the delicate lines of eyeliner with trembling fingers. The act of correcting it made me hyper-aware of every detail, the way the skirt brushed my thighs, the stockings hugging my legs, the wig's perfect fall over my shoulders. Each adjustment heightened the tension. I realized I had been holding my breath, body taut with anticipation and fear. My reflection stared back, soft, fragile, perfect, and yet, in my chest, the racing heart of Alex remained, desperate, anxious, and overwhelmed by the transformation. I stood again, practicing the sway of my hips, the tilt of my shoulders, the curve of my spine. High heels forced me to focus on balance and elegance, and the mirror reflected a version of me I was both terrified and thrilled to see. Each movement felt like walking on a knife edge, one misstep, one sound, one unexpected interruption, and the fragile illusion would shatter. Then came a noise, faint, almost imperceptible, the creak of a floorboard outside the sunroom. My stomach dropped. Was it Ryan returning early? A neighbor? Or just the wind? My breath caught, and every nerve in my body heightened. I froze, heels gripping the wooden floor, skirt clinging, wig brushing my shoulders. The suspense was immediate, electrifying. I told myself it was nothing, but the thrill lingered, sharp and addictive. Each second stretched, every heartbeat a drumbeat of suspense. The bet had moved beyond a simple challenge, it had become a game of control, vulnerability, and self-discovery. Every reflection, every glance, every delicate adjustment made me realize just how deep I had stepped into this new identity. The night pressed in around me. Shadows lengthened, city lights flickered faintly through the glass panes, and I felt suspended between two worlds. One, the familiar, confident Alex who had always existed. The other, the delicate, feminine persona Ryan dared me to become. The thrill of inhabiting both simultaneously was almost overwhelming. I took a deep breath, smoothing the wig one last time. The challenge wasn't just surviving the night, it was fully surrendering to it, embracing every fear, every thrill, every pulse of suspense. And somewhere, in the back of my mind, I knew that this was only the beginning. The night had claimed me, the persona had formed, and the suspense was far from over. Every sound, every shadow, every heartbeat reminded me that the true test was just ahead. The night deepened, and the city lights outside flickered against the glass walls like distant stars. I had moved to the rooftop garden, a hidden space filled with potted flowers and low benches, a place that had always felt private, almost secret, but tonight it was a stage for something far more intense. The bet Ryan had thrown at me was no longer a simple challenge. It had become a test of my courage, my control, and my ability to fully surrender to this delicate, feminine persona he had dared me to embody. I stood under the soft glow of the lanterns, the heels making every step deliberate, precise, swaying the skirt just enough to feel elegant but cautious. My reflection shimmered across the glass doors, multiplied by shadows and faint city light. Each fragment stared back at me, fragile and alluring, yet impossibly exposed. I could feel the weight of their silent scrutiny, real or imagined, pressing on me like a tangible force. The wind teased my wig, strands brushing my cheeks, and I instinctively tucked them behind my ears, smoothing them with trembling fingers. My makeup glowed under the lantern light, foundation flawless, blush soft, lips pink and inviting. But the real transformation wasn't just physical, it was in my stance, my voice, my every gesture. I had become someone else entirely, someone delicate, feminine, and vulnerable, and yet, the thrill coursing through me made me feel more alive than ever. I walked carefully along the stone path, testing the balance of the heels, letting the skirt sway naturally. Every movement was a lesson in grace, every step a challenge to maintain composure. My reflection followed me, fragmented across the glass, and I couldn't tell if I was observing Alex or the girly doll Ryan had conjured with his bet. The duality twisted inside me, part fear, part excitement, and all-consuming. Then came the faintest sound, a rustle from the neighboring terrace, a whisper of movement, and my pulse spiked. Had Ryan returned early? Was someone out there watching me? The hairs on my arms stood up as adrenaline surged through my body. I froze, one hand on the railing, heart hammering in my chest. The thrill of potential discovery was intoxicating, dangerous, impossible to ignore. I sank onto a low bench, smoothing the fabric of the skirt over my legs, heels precariously perched. My breathing was rapid, shallow, yet I felt a strange exhilaration. Every detail of the persona mattered, the tilt of my head, the softness of my voice, the sway of my hips, the delicate gesture of my hands. This wasn't just a transformation, it was an immersion, a surrender, a complete embodiment of someone I had only ever imagined being. My thoughts drifted to Alexa. What if she saw me now? The thought made my stomach twist. Would she laugh, scold, or be intrigued? The uncertainty was agonizing, yet the thrill of the bet made it irresistible. I had always feared judgment, feared exposure, but the adrenaline pushed all those fears aside, replacing them with something darker, more addictive. I practiced walking again, careful steps along the garden tiles, heels clicking softly in the night. The wind lifted the hem of the skirt, teasing me with the sensation of exposure. My reflection in the glass multiplied, each version watching me, judging me, daring me to go further. I shivered, part of me terrified, part of me thrilled by the risk. The shadows deepened, twisting across the terrace, and I imagined a figure suddenly appearing, a neighbor, Ryan, anyone, catching me in this fragile, feminine state. The thought sent my pulse racing. My chest tightened, breath shallow, yet the anticipation was addictive. I realized that the danger itself was part of the transformation. It made every movement sharper, every glance in the mirror more electric, every heartbeat a drum of suspense. I paused under the largest lantern, adjusting the wig, smoothing the skirt, checking the stockings. Everything had to be perfect, the bet demanded it. The persona had become a delicate, fragile mask that I wore with trembling hands but a beating heart full of anticipation. I spoke softly to myself, testing the higher, melodic voice I had practiced, and it sounded strange, yet perfectly in character. Alex was gone, replaced by the girly doll Ryan had dared me to become. And then I noticed it, a small flaw, a slight wrinkle in the skirt. Panic bubbled in my chest. Every detail mattered, and this tiny imperfection felt like a betrayal. I knelt carefully to smooth it, heels balanced with effort, every muscle tense. The thrill and fear merged into a single pulse that made the night feel alive around me, as if the garden itself were watching, waiting for me to falter. A sudden rustle in the nearby bushes made me freeze. My heart jumped into my throat. The risk of discovery had escalated beyond imagination. Every instinct screamed caution, yet the persona I had built refused to retreat. I was too deep now, too enthralled by the thrill, the fear, the delicate tension between exposure and control. I rose slowly, testing my balance once more, walking along the path with deliberate elegance. The reflections in the glass multiplied with the lantern light, each one a reminder of how fragile, how delicate, and how exposed I was. I realized then that this bet had done more than challenge me, it had stripped away hesitation, forced me to confront every fear and every desire at once. The night seemed to hold its breath with me. Every sound, every shadow, every flicker of light became part of the suspense, a constant reminder that one misstep could shatter everything. And yet, I moved forward, heels clicking softly, skirt swaying, wig brushing my shoulders, fully immersed in this persona, fully surrendered to the thrill, the fear, the delicate tension. As I paused at the edge of the terrace, looking out over the city lights, I realized the truth. The bet wasn't just about cross-dressing. It was about surrender, exposure, and the intoxicating thrill of stepping fully into a side of myself I had never dared to reveal. And the night wasn't over. The suspense, the risk, and the transformation were far from complete. I froze mid-step. The soft shuffle of footsteps wasn't a figment of imagination this time, it was real. Somewhere in the loft, or maybe closer to the terrace, someone was moving. My heart slammed against my ribs, and the heels under my feet suddenly felt like traps rather than extensions of elegance. The persona I had spent hours perfecting, delicate, fragile, alluring, now felt vulnerable in the harsh reality of potential discovery. I had fully surrendered to the girly doll Ryan had demanded I become, but surrendering came with a price. I was exposed. Every movement could betray me. Every sound could reveal the secret I had protected for years. I pressed myself against the railing, trying to merge with the shadows. The city lights outside painted long, flickering shapes across my body, reflecting off the glass in fragmented versions of me. Each reflection stared back, silent, accusatory, and alive. I could feel my pulse echoing in my ears, each beat a loud drum of suspense. A voice whispered from somewhere behind me. I didn't recognize it at first, a low murmur, almost teasing. My body stiffened. Was it Ryan? My mind raced through possibilities. I was alone, or at least I had thought I was. Alex, is that you? The voice hit me like a punch. My chest tightened. I hadn't expected anyone else. The voice belonged to Alexa. My heart froze in horror. She must have returned early, or stumbled upon the loft without warning. Panic surged. I took a trembling step backward, trying to adjust the skirt, my hands fumbling as the fabric caught under the heels. The moment felt suspended, time stretching infinitely. I turned slowly, hoping to steady my voice, to appear composed despite the chaos inside me. Hey, I managed to squeak in the high, delicate tone I had practiced for hours. The sound of my own voice made my cheeks burn. It wasn't Alex. It was her girly doll version, fragile, exposed, and completely visible. Alexa's eyes widened. Alex? What are you wearing? The words were a mixture of shock, curiosity, and disbelief. My stomach twisted. Every second I hesitated increased the tension, the suspense like a physical force pressing against me. I swallowed hard, trying to explain, but the words failed. My mouth opened, closed, and finally I managed it. It's a bet. Ryan dared me. I didn't, my voice faltered, soft and high, betraying every ounce of embarrassment and fear. Her gaze scanned me, slowly, deliberately, as if taking in every detail, the wig perfectly framing my face, the makeup flawless, the skirt swaying delicately with each tremulous movement, the stockings hugging my legs, and the heels forcing me into an unnatural, elegant posture. I felt naked under her scrutiny, my entire transformation laid bare in a single glance. Ryan, she asked slowly, suspicion creeping into her tone. My heart sank further. It wasn't just shock in her eyes, it was accusation, curiosity, and a hint of amusement. I could feel the weight of judgment pressing down on me, and yet beneath it was something else, a spark of intrigue I hadn't anticipated. I took another step backward, trying to keep my balance in the heels. The soft click echoed across the terrace like a countdown. The skirt swayed, and I realized with a jolt that one misstep could reveal the full vulnerability of my persona. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, to strip away the fragile mask I had spent hours perfecting, but my pride, my thrill, my surrender to the bet held me in place. Alexa tilted her head, eyes narrowing slightly, lips twitching in a half-smile. "This is really you?" Her voice was softer now, yet each word carried weight, suspense, and judgment. I nodded slowly, unable to meet her gaze directly, feeling the delicate persona I had crafted begin to tremble under the scrutiny. The wind picked up, teasing the wig and the hem of my skirt, making the moment even more precarious. Every movement became a risk. Every flicker of shadow could betray me. I realized then that the true test wasn't just wearing the clothes or perfecting the persona, it was surviving the exposure, keeping the balance between thrill and fear, delight and humiliation. Alexa stepped closer, her footsteps soft yet deliberate, echoing in the tense silence. My chest tightened further. She was too close, too real, and the persona I had created felt fragile under her gaze. I could feel every heartbeat, every tremor of fear, every pulse of excitement that had carried me through the transformation now amplifying in intensity. I swallowed hard, hands pressed delicately against the railing, trying to steady the high heels under my feet. The moment hung suspended, a fragile thread connecting my fear and exhilaration, my identity and my transformation. And then she reached out, just a hand, brushing lightly against my arm, and my body shivered. The contact was electric, intimate, terrifying, and utterly exposing. Alexa's eyes searched mine, and for the first time, I saw not just shock but curiosity, fascination, and something dangerous, understanding. The suspense, the bet, the thrill, it had all led to this moment. And I realized that no matter what happened next, the night would never feel the same. The lanterns flickered, the city lights shimmered, and the reflection of my persona in the glass multiplied into infinite versions of delicate, feminine me, all vulnerable, all exposed, all caught in this tense, suspenseful moment. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew, this was only the beginning of the climax, and the true challenge, the ultimate test of exposure, vulnerability, and transformation, was about to unfold. The seconds stretched like hours. Alexa's gaze held me in place, her hand barely brushing my arm, and my body felt electrified. I could feel the high heels digging into the ground, the skirt clinging uncomfortably, the wig brushing my shoulders, but it wasn't just physical. Every nerve in my body was taut, a wire stretched to the breaking point between fear and exhilaration. "Alex, this is," she whispered, her voice a mixture of shock, curiosity, and something else I couldn't quite name. My chest tightened, and I realized the persona I had meticulously crafted, delicate, girly, exposed, was now entirely at her mercy. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even breathe properly. I tried to find words, something to explain, to justify, to lessen the tension, but nothing came out except a soft, trembling, it's a bet. The high-pitched, melodic tone of my voice made me wince inside, but I couldn't stop it. The words hung between us like fragile glass, each syllable threatening to shatter the delicate balance of the moment. Alexa stepped closer, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. The wig, the stockings, the skirt, the heels, all perfectly in place, yet the persona wasn't just in the clothes. It was in my posture, my gestures, my trembling hands, my hesitant steps. I realized in that moment that she could see everything, my fear, my vulnerability, my thrill. And the thought made my stomach twist. "What? Ryan made you do this?" she asked slowly, almost cautiously, as if afraid to provoke an answer. I nodded, unable to form a coherent sentence. My mind was spinning. Every instinct screamed to hide, to strip the persona away, to return to the safety of Alex, but something inside me resisted. The thrill, the surrender, the delicate tension, it was intoxicating, impossible to abandon. She moved closer still, and the lantern light caught her expression perfectly, a mixture of fascination and disbelief, curiosity and subtle amusement. My pulse raced. Every inch she closed the distance amplified my vulnerability. I felt fragile, exposed, and yet more alive than I had ever felt. The girly doll persona Ryan had dared me to become wasn't just surviving, it was thriving under scrutiny, and the suspense was overwhelming. The wind picked up, teasing the hem of my skirt, brushing the wig against my face. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the delicate strands. Every motion felt observed, judged, and dangerously intimate. I could feel my own reflection multiplied across the glass panes, each version delicate, feminine, fragile, suspended in this tense, electric moment. Then came the creak, a sudden, sharp sound from the stairs leading up to the rooftop garden. My heart jumped violently. Footsteps. Someone was coming. Alexa's gaze flicked toward the sound, and mine followed instinctively. Panic surged, mixing with the exhilaration, creating a heady cocktail of fear and desire. "Wait, did someone else come up here?" she asked, her voice tense now. I shook my head, trying to appear composed, but the tremor in my hands, the sway of my skirt, the delicate tilt of my posture betrayed me. My breath came faster, shallow, and I realized that every second now was a test of composure, of balance, of keeping the persona alive under the pressure of exposure. The steps grew closer. Shadows shifted across the terrace. The high heels clicked more sharply against the stone tiles, each sound echoing like a countdown. My stomach churned. I was caught between two forces, the fear of discovery and the thrill of surrender. The persona I had built was fragile, delicate, but utterly mesmerizing, and the suspense of being found, of being seen like this, was almost unbearable. Alexa's eyes met mine again, a silent question lingering, "What do we do now?" I couldn't answer. My tongue felt heavy, my voice faltering. I was utterly exposed, yet the thrill of the moment made me shiver with anticipation. Every nerve was alive, every sense heightened. The wind, the shadows, the click of heels, the soft brush of the wig against my cheeks, it all blended into a single, intoxicating tension. Then I felt it, the undeniable realization that this wasn't just a bet anymore. It was a test of trust, a test of exposure, and a test of control. Could I survive the scrutiny, maintain the persona, and navigate the suspense without faltering? Every heartbeat screamed yes and no at the same time. The footsteps stopped. Silence stretched like a tightrope over the night. I clutched the skirt delicately, fingers trembling, heels digging into the floor for stability. Alexa's gaze held me in place, her expression unreadable yet electric with suspense. I knew that the next second, the next move, could change everything. And then, a soft laugh. Low, teasing, familiar. "Ryan." He stepped into the moonlight, watching us both, eyes glinting with amusement and triumph. My heart nearly leapt out of my chest. I was caught between the persona I had embraced, the vulnerability I had surrendered to, and the thrill of being exposed to both Alexa and Ryan. The suspense was unbearable. Every muscle tensed. Every nerve screamed. Every heartbeat thundered in my ears. The climax of the bet, the ultimate test of vulnerability, thrill, and surrender, had arrived. And in that moment, I realized, nothing would ever feel the same again. Ryan's presence froze me completely. He leaned casually against the railing, arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips as he surveyed the scene. Alexa's wide eyes flicked between the two of us, a mixture of confusion, disbelief, and growing intrigue evident in her expression. I felt my knees wobble in the high heels. The delicate persona I had built threatened to collapse under the weight of both their gazes. "You really went all in," Ryan said slowly, voice dripping with amusement. "I didn't think you had it in you." I swallowed hard, hands trembling, skirt clinging uncomfortably. The adrenaline surged through me like electricity. Every second was a battle between exposure and thrill, fear and exhilaration. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure they could hear it. This was the pinnacle of the bet, the moment I had feared and craved in equal measure. Alexa's gaze softened slightly, curiosity overtaking shock. "Alex, why? Why would you let him do this to you?" she asked, her voice low, hesitant, but still tinged with disbelief. I opened my mouth, tried to speak, but the words got caught in my throat. I could barely form a coherent sentence without trembling. Ryan chuckled, stepping closer. "Because, Alex, you wanted to win the challenge. You wanted to prove you could handle it. And now look at you, perfectly exposed, completely transformed." I shifted slightly, heels clicking softly on the terrace tiles. The skirt swayed naturally, the wig brushing my shoulders. Every small movement amplified my vulnerability. Every glance in the glass reflected my delicate, feminine persona multiplied into countless images. I was caught, fragile, yet thrillingly alive. The wind gusted, tugging at the skirt and teasing strands of the wig across my cheeks. I adjusted the wig with trembling fingers, smooth as I could manage, but the movement only drew more attention to my delicate appearance. Alexa took a hesitant step closer, her gaze fixed on me. My breath caught. The thrill of being seen, judged, and perhaps admired was intoxicating. Ryan's smirk widened. "You're shaking. Is it excitement, fear, or both?" His voice held a teasing, almost cruel undertone. I could feel my body tense under their combined scrutiny. The persona I had embraced was fragile, delicate, and now fully exposed to two people, one playful and mocking, the other curious and questioning. Alexa bit her lip, taking in my high heels, the swaying skirt, the delicate posture I had forced myself to maintain. "Alex, you really let him turn you into this," she whispered. My body shivered, partly from fear, partly from the thrill. Each word she spoke, each hesitant step she took, made me more acutely aware of the persona I inhabited. I tried to speak, tried to explain, but my voice came out soft, high-pitched, trembling. I had to, the bet. I couldn't back down, the words felt inadequate, but the truth was there. I had surrendered to the challenge, and in doing so, I had fully immersed myself in this delicate, exposed version of me. Ryan stepped even closer, eyes glinting with mischief. "And now you're caught. The ultimate test. Can you maintain control? Can you survive the exposure without breaking?" I swallowed hard, heels digging into the terrace tiles. The persona I had cultivated was fragile, elegant, delicate, but the suspense of being fully observed by both Ryan and Alexa made my stomach twist. Every instinct screamed to retreat, to shed the persona and return to safety, yet every fiber of my being thrilled at the danger. Alexa's eyes softened again, a subtle spark of fascination appearing. "Alex, you're different," she said quietly, almost to herself. My heart leapt at the words, yet the uncertainty of her reaction kept the suspense razor-sharp. Did she mean it as admiration, shock, curiosity, or judgment? The ambiguity was excruciating. Then came a small stumble, my heel caught the edge of the stone tile. Instantly, I felt the skirt tug awkwardly, and my heart sank. Ryan's eyes glinted with amusement, Alexa's gaze sharpened, and I realized the persona I had fought so hard to maintain was seconds from faltering. Panic surged through me, but I forced myself to straighten, lifting my chin, adjusting the wig with trembling fingers. The tension stretched. Shadows flickered across the terrace, the wind teased the hem of my skirt, and every heartbeat sounded like a countdown. I was suspended in a delicate balance between humiliation, thrill, and exposure. Every breath I took reminded me that I was completely visible, completely fragile, but somehow still holding on. Ryan stepped even closer, smirk turning sharper. "One wrong move, Alex. One misstep, and it's all over. Do you have what it takes to finish this bet?" His words were a razor's edge, slicing through the suspense, forcing me to confront the thrill and fear at the same time. I nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in my throat. The persona, fragile and delicate, had survived this far. But the suspense was far from over. The next moments would determine whether I could maintain control, balance, and composure, or whether the persona would shatter under exposure. Alexa took another tentative step, her gaze locked on mine. The uncertainty in her eyes mirrored my own internal chaos. I was completely exposed, yet alive, trembling yet thrilled, vulnerable yet strangely empowered. The climax had fully arrived. And then, the shadows shifted. From the corner of the terrace, a sudden movement, a sound, a presence, threatened to unravel everything. The sudden movement from the terrace corner sent my heart racing. Shadows shifted in the lantern light, and I froze, every muscle taut, every nerve screaming alert. I could barely breathe, heels pressing into the tiles, skirt clinging with every minor adjustment. The persona I had built, the delicate, feminine girly doll, was still alive, but just barely holding together under the pressure of exposure. Ryan's eyes glinted in the dim light, amusement and anticipation dancing across his expression. He clearly enjoyed watching me teeter on the edge between fear and exhilaration. Alexa, meanwhile, stepped closer, curiosity battling hesitation, her gaze fixed on me like a magnifying glass over every trembling detail. A soft, deliberate laugh echoed from the shadows. My stomach sank. Someone else was here. My hands trembled as I smoothed the wig nervously. My reflection in the glass multiplied the panic, every delicate feature, every swaying skirt, every shiver from fear or thrill was mirrored infinitely, exposing me in countless versions simultaneously. The presence advanced. A silhouette emerged, tall, imposing, a stranger to this precarious scene. My breath caught. Could they see? Would they understand? Or would they expose me, unraveling everything I had struggled to maintain? The suspense was suffocating, each second a countdown to disaster. Ryan's smirk widened. "Looks like we have an audience," he whispered, his voice both teasing and chilling. I stiffened, helpless under the combined weight of scrutiny. Every instinct screamed to flee, to hide, to shed the delicate persona I had fought to embrace, but the thrill, the challenge, the intoxicating tension kept me rooted in place. Alexa's eyes widened, taking in the stranger. Who is that?" she asked softly, uncertainty creeping into her tone. My lips parted slightly, unsure whether to speak, to explain, to defend, or to remain silent. The high heels under my feet made each tiny movement precarious, and the skirt swaying with every shift seemed to betray my vulnerability. The stranger stepped into the light. For a heartbeat, I thought the world had paused. Recognition flickered across their face, but it wasn't a familiar enemy, it wasn't a friend, it wasn't Ryan or Alexa. It was someone whose intentions I couldn't gauge. Their eyes scanned me, flicking from the wig to the skirt, from the delicate posture to the trembling hands. I felt utterly exposed, every detail of my transformation laid bare. I took a trembling step backward, heels clicking sharply against the tiles, and nearly lost my balance. Ryan's quiet laughter echoed in the night, savoring my precarious position. Alexa stepped closer instinctively, her hand hovering near mine, and I realized the tension wasn't just about exposure, it was about control. Could I survive this? Could I maintain the delicate balance I had fought so hard to achieve? The stranger's gaze lingered, sharp and piercing, as if searching for something. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my racing heart. The persona was fragile, every detail critical. One misstep could reveal everything, not just my transformation, but my surrender, my thrill, my vulnerability. The suspense pressed in from all sides, wrapping around me like a vice. A gust of wind swept across the terrace, tugging at the wig and teasing the hem of the skirt. My hands flew instinctively to adjust the wig, fingers trembling, heels digging into the stone for stability. The wind became a second antagonist, an unpredictable force threatening to expose every meticulous detail. Every shiver, every flicker of fabric, every small movement magnified the suspense. Ryan stepped closer, voice low and dangerous. One wrong move, Alex. One slip, one stumble, one hesitation, and it's over. Can you handle the attention, or will the persona crack? His words sliced through the tension like a knife. I could feel my knees shake, my heart racing, my delicate persona threatening to crumble under the weight of scrutiny. Alexa's gaze softened slightly, but her eyes were wide, alert, uncertain. Alex, you're so delicate like this, she whispered, almost reverently. The words made my chest tighten with a mix of embarrassment and excitement. Every syllable, every glance, every hesitant step she took amplified the tension, making the suspense almost unbearable. The stranger took another step, and I froze completely. He was closer now, studying me with a curiosity that made every heartbeat thunder in my ears. The reflection in the glass multiplied infinitely, showing me in countless fragile, feminine versions, trembling under exposure, vulnerable yet entrancing. I swallowed hard, adjusting the wig and smoothing the skirt once more. The heels forced every movement into careful precision. Every gesture, every motion, every glance was a delicate dance between elegance and fear, thrill and exposure. The suspense had reached its peak. Every second now felt like walking a tightrope above a chasm, one misstep away from complete collapse. Ryan's smirk sharpened. Do you feel it, Alex? The thrill? The fear? The total exposure? He stepped closer, whispering just above my ear. I shivered uncontrollably, caught between embarrassment and excitement, every nerve alive with tension. The stranger leaned slightly forward, and for a moment, I thought, this is it. I'm exposed. I'm caught. But then, Alexa's hand brushed mine, a silent gesture of support, of fascination, of connection. The suspense twisted, became electric, charged with possibility. Could I maintain composure? Could I survive this attention, this scrutiny, this delicate, thrilling vulnerability? The night held its breath. Shadows danced, the wind teased, heels clicked, and reflections multiplied endlessly. I was caught between fear and exhilaration, exposure and thrill, collapse and surrender. The climax was far from over. And then, a sudden, sharp laugh echoed behind the stranger. Another presence. Another unknown factor. The suspense reached a crescendo. One wrong move, one sound, one faltering heartbeat, and the fragile persona, delicate and girly, would either survive or shatter completely. The night had transformed into a storm of tension. Every shadow, every flicker of light, every whisper of wind seemed magnified, pressing against me like an invisible weight. I stood frozen, heels digging into the terrace tiles, skirt swaying delicately, wig brushing my shoulders. Every nerve in my body screamed alert, every heartbeat a deafening drum in the charged silence. The stranger's eyes locked onto mine. They didn't speak, just studied, their gaze dissecting every detail of my delicate girly doll persona. My chest tightened with panic, yet beneath it surged a strange thrill, a twisted exhilaration I couldn't deny. I had never felt so alive, so exposed, so impossibly fragile and electric all at once. Ryan stepped closer, his smirk sharp, predatory. One misstep, Alex. One moment of hesitation, and everything unravels. The words weren't just teasing, they were a declaration of the stakes. My persona, every delicate motion, every trembling gesture, was at risk. My mind raced, one stumble, one faltering word, one uneven step, and the fragile illusion I had fought to create could collapse entirely. Alexa's hand brushed mine again, this time holding it briefly, her fingers warm. The gesture was grounding, yet it amplified my vulnerability. She wasn't mocking or judging, she was intrigued, fascinated, almost captivated by the delicate, feminine version of me that Ryan had forced into existence. But could I survive this scrutiny? Could I maintain control? Every instinct screamed caution, yet the thrill refused to release me. The stranger's shadow flickered in the lantern light, moving closer. The sound of their steps mingled with the soft click of my heels, each noise magnified in the tense, electric silence. The wind tugged at my skirt and teased the wig across my cheeks, forcing me to adjust frantically, aware that any tiny misstep could betray the persona. Ryan chuckled low, almost cruelly. Look at you. Trembling, swaying, perfect. But can you handle it if it gets worse? I swallowed hard. My voice was fragile, high-pitched, trembling. I can handle it, I whispered. But the truth was, I didn't know. I had never been under such intense scrutiny, exposed so completely, my delicate persona hanging by the thinnest of threads. Alexa's eyes softened but remained curious. Alex, you're incredible like this, she murmured. Her voice wasn't judgmental, it was fascinated, captivated. But her proximity, her gaze, her attention, it all amplified the suspense, the risk, the delicate tension that made my heart pound uncontrollably. Then, without warning, the stranger stepped forward abruptly, breaking the rhythm of the night. I stumbled slightly, the heel catching a crack in the stone tile. My hands flew to steady myself, one clutching the railing, the other pressed to the skirt. The movement was enough to expose the vulnerability, enough to shatter the delicate persona if anyone dared take notice. Ryan's laughter filled the terrace, low and predatory. Careful, Alex. One wrong move and the illusion ends. The words, the amusement, the intensity of his gaze, everything pressed in on me. The persona, fragile and delicate, felt the strain like an invisible vice. The stranger's voice finally cut through the tension, low and deliberate. So, this is what he dared you to do? The words weren't mocking, but their calmness made them all the more terrifying. The scrutiny was suffocating, electric, impossible to ignore. I felt sweat prickling at my hairline. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the wig and smoothed the skirt once more. The heels forced every movement into careful, deliberate precision. Every motion, every glance, every tiny gesture was amplified under the piercing eyes of both Alexa and the stranger. Alexa took another step closer, brushing lightly against my arm. Alex, you're so delicate, she whispered, almost reverently. The words made my heart leap, but they also underscored my complete exposure. The persona I had spent hours perfecting was on the edge of collapse, fragile, trembling, and utterly alive under the tension of this near discovery. Then it happened. A sudden sound, a thud from the terrace door. Ryan's smirk faltered, Alexa's eyes widened, and my heart lurched violently. The thud echoed like a hammer, sending shivers down my spine. Every instinct screamed danger, exposure, collapse. I turned slightly, catching a glimpse of a shadow moving past the doorway, someone entering unexpectedly. My chest tightened, breath catching in my throat. One step closer, one stumble, one misstep, and everything would unravel. The persona, delicate and fragile, teetered on the edge of shattering. Ryan's smirk returned, sharper than before. Looks like the real test begins now, he murmured, voice low and electric. I realized he wasn't just watching, I was performing, surviving, surrendering under the highest possible stakes. The wind tugged again at the hem of the skirt. My hands flew up instinctively to adjust the wig, the movement betraying my vulnerability even more. Alexa's gaze followed my every motion, fascinated, tense, intrigued. And the stranger remained motionless, studying, assessing, waiting. Every heartbeat thundered in my chest. Every nerve screamed in anticipation. I was caught between fear and thrill, exposure and exhilaration, collapse and surrender. The persona, delicate and feminine, was alive, but barely. And then, the door swung open fully. A figure stepped into the terrace, shadowed by the lantern light. I froze completely, heels clicking in panic, skirt swaying uncontrollably. Ryan's smirk widened. Alexa gasped softly. The suspense reached its peak. I realized, in that frozen heartbeat, that nothing would ever be the same again. The delicate, girly doll persona Ryan had forced me to become was fully exposed, and the night had only just begun. The figure in the doorway froze, framed by the lantern light, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to stop. My heart pounded so violently that I was sure it echoed across the terrace. The heels beneath my feet suddenly felt heavier, the skirt clinging uncomfortably, the wig brushing against my cheeks like an accusation. Alexa's eyes widened, mouth slightly open. Ryan's smirk sharpened, predatory, knowing, as if he had orchestrated this final moment of suspense. And me? I was caught, completely, utterly, terrifyingly exposed. Every trembling motion, every delicate gesture, every high-pitched, fragile word I had practiced and perfected was now vulnerable to judgment, scrutiny, and possibly ridicule. The newcomer stepped closer, and I caught a fleeting glimpse of recognition, or was it surprise? I couldn't tell. My mind raced. Do they know? Do they suspect? Or are they just curious? Every second stretched painfully, the tension almost unbearable. I adjusted the wig, my trembling hands betraying me, and smoothed the skirt, trying to maintain the fragile persona I had surrendered to so completely. Ryan leaned casually against the railing, his gaze gleaming with amusement. "Looks like our little bet just got a new audience," he whispered, low and dangerous. The words sent shivers down my spine. He wasn't just teasing, he was orchestrating every second of this suspenseful exposure, watching my every move, and savoring my vulnerability. Alexa stepped closer, her fingers brushing mine again, a subtle gesture of support, fascination, and perhaps admiration. Her eyes locked onto mine, searching, questioning, captivated. My chest tightened. The persona I had embraced, delicate, fragile, girly, was alive, but barely. And now it was fully exposed under the gaze of three people. The stranger took another step, closer, shadow flickering across their face in the lantern light. I felt my knees wobble slightly in the heels. My hands flew to clutch the railing, then my skirt, then the wig, trying desperately to maintain composure. Every motion felt magnified, every glance scrutinized, every shiver or hesitation potentially catastrophic. Ryan's voice cut through the tension, low and teasing. "One wrong move, Alex, and the illusion shatters. Can you survive it?" I swallowed hard, trying to steady my trembling voice. I can," the words came out fragile, high-pitched, barely audible. But the truth was, I wasn't sure. My persona, delicate and vulnerable, had survived countless tests, but this scrutiny, exposure, suspense, was unlike anything I had ever faced. The wind gusted, teasing the hem of the skirt, tugging at the wig, forcing me to adjust frantically. Each movement was a risk, each second a test. I realized that this wasn't just about Ryan's bet anymore. It was about survival, about maintaining control under pressure, about embracing the persona I had chosen despite the exposure. The stranger's face finally came into focus, eyes flicking between Ryan, Alexa, and me. My stomach twisted. Recognition flashed through their gaze, but their expression was unreadable, part shock, part curiosity, part something I couldn't identify. The suspense was suffocating. Every instinct screamed to flee, to hide, to shed the delicate persona, but my pride, my thrill, my surrender to the bet held me in place. Alexa's whisper broke the silence, almost reverently. "Alex, you're incredible." Her words sent a shiver down my spine, a mix of thrill and vulnerability. I dared not respond. I could feel every heartbeat, every nerve, every trembling motion magnified under their combined gaze. The persona I had embraced, delicate, girly, exposed, was alive but hanging by a thread. Ryan leaned closer, voice low and electric. "Now, let's see if you can handle the real test." His words were both a challenge and a promise. I swallowed, adjusting the wig and smoothing the skirt again. My body trembled, heels digging into the stone tiles. Every reflection, every shadow, every flicker of movement amplified the suspense, leaving me feeling more exposed, more delicate, more fragile, and yet exhilarated. The stranger stepped fully into the lantern light. My eyes widened. Recognition hit me in a jolt so sharp I almost stumbled in the heels. It wasn't just anyone, they knew me. They knew everything. The persona I had carefully crafted, delicate and girly, vulnerable and exposed, was about to be discovered in its entirety. My breath caught in my throat. The skirt swayed uncontrollably. My hands shook. The wig threatened to slip. Every nerve in my body was on fire with suspense, fear, and an impossible thrill. I realized then that nothing would ever feel the same again. The delicate, girly doll persona Ryan had forced me into was fully exposed, hanging by the thinnest thread of suspense. And then, everything froze. The wind stilled. Shadows paused. Ryan's smirk sharpened, Alexa's eyes widened, the stranger's gaze locked on me, and for the first time, I understood that the night was far from over. The persona, delicate and fragile, had survived, but the real test, the ultimate exposure, was only just beginning. I took a trembling step backward, heels clicking sharply against the terrace tiles. The skirt swayed, the wig brushed my cheeks, and I could feel my heart racing faster than ever. I glanced at Alexa. She wasn't laughing, she wasn't judging, her eyes were wide, curious, and intrigued. Ryan's smirk remained predatory. The stranger's presence was electric, unreadable. And in that suspended heartbeat, I realized the truth, the persona I had embraced, delicate and girly, was completely exposed. Every secret, every surrender, every thrill of the bet was hanging in the balance. The final words echoed in my mind, Ryan's voice low, teasing, and dangerous. One wrong move, Alex, and it's all over. And just as my heel teetered on the edge of the stone tile, the lantern light flickered.